Hey everyone, welcome to Pastor Play. So we have Queen Sugar Season 7, Episode 13, the series finale titled They Existed. Currently streaming on the OWN app and also airing on the OWN cable channel. So we open with Hollywood, Aunt Vi, Nova, Darla, and Ralph Angel celebrating at a casino over Hollywood winning and becoming St. Joe's new school board seated member, which is a great accomplishment, considering the fact that he never finished high school, as he told us in the last episode when he was given his kind of his speech against his opponent. And after that, all five of them are feeling kind of freaky, caught up in the heat, spur of the victory, caught up by the moonlight. Ralph, Angel, and Darla, they go home and they, get it on basically coming in the door. And Vi lets Hollywood know that she wants to make love under the moonlight outside. Before he even, as he's kind of entering the door, she's like, "No, I'm gonna stay out here. You're gonna come with me." She does like this, and all while you have Sade's By Your Side, the Cotton Belly Fola Mix Edit Remix playing, and I really want to download that because I never heard that version of that song. But last but not least, Nova, she makes a booty call to Calvin to come over, and I'm like, wait, I thought this, the Storm episode 7 was the end of this kind of couple's love story. Gone but not forgotten, but the relationship was given an end. So I really thought that, episode 7 was kind of this was the show kind of putting Elaine to rest, the end of that relationship. So narratively for Nova's character, I thought they're putting her relationship with Calvin to rest, and she's moving forward and not going backwards anymore. They're kind of just resting it, to the dead more or less, and then it just kind of seems now they're just like digging it back up. But, as I thought about it, Nova has never had the type of connection she's had with Calvin with anyone else, even more or less with Dominic in a lot of ways. As much as she was proud of herself for sending Calvin away and not cheating on Dominic back in episode 7, now that she and Dominic have broken up, she still wanted Calvin. And after that thought, I'm like, okay, I'll go on this oops, I did it again, as Britney Spears plays in my background kind of thought. But in this episode, or this last episode, Calvin wants more than just being Nova's part-time lover. Shout out to Stevie Wonder. Calvin, he lets Nova know that he's not a cop anymore. He's not married. There's no more secrets between them. You know, they they've both met each other's family. They've lived together. He basically tells Nova that he believes that they're meant to be, and this is not the way he wants their story to end. He won't accept it. He basically lets Nova know that he and her are in game. He knows and he loves Nova. And I thought Calvin was right to lay out exactly what he wanted and then leave it in Nova's hands to decide what she wanted. Then in this episode, when Nova was able to open the door in at Aunt Martha's home with Calvin there, but in the last episode she couldn't open it with Dominic, it did make sense. Even though too in this episode she gets the keys to the property, so y'all gonna kind of have to look at it how you want to, but she does realize that she needs to stop fighting the love between Calvin and her, and that she's always kind of thought about what other people thought about their relationship, kind of letting that guide her decisions and not just kind of being fully in the relationship with him and just kind of letting it be it for what it is. And Nova ends up inheriting her mother's church and, the family slash Aunt Martha's home with Calvin there. And I thought it was a satisfying conclusion. Nova is connected to love, her family, the land, and her spirit. Kind of looking back at the first episode, she was kind of like a healer for people. She kind of gets reconnected back into that to where she was kind of in the first season. She was kind of like a healer. People would come to her for kind of healing and kind of being in touch in a more spiritual way. She kind of gets back in touch with that. She really finds her flow again, and she basically gets her groove back more or less. And the last kind of big thing that you see with Nova and Calvin is Nova coming to sit on like the swing that they have on the porch, and she sits down and places Calvin's hand on her stomach, kind of signaling that she may be pregnant. And I think overall it's a great ending to her story arc. She kind of comes full circle. In the first episode, they're the opening kind of image you see. They're laying in the bed together, her and Calvin, but he's married. And so I think, ending it at the very end of these, 7 seasons now, you see that they are together with no marriages, no secrets, no lies. It's just, it's their love for each other, and they can just exist. Yeah, they can just exist for they existed. I think that title really does ripple throughout a lot of this episode and just kind of overall context. So then we go to Ralph Angel. He tells Blue about his biological father, and that they both, Chase and Darla, they went to the same school together, despite Darla's request that Ralph Angel not do it. Now, Ralph Angel didn't mention Chase by name or the fact that he raped Darla, but he was toeing the line. As expected, Darla was mad as hell. Blue's not a very good liar. Blue kind of let it slip when he was talking to Darla, basically saying, I have double the legacy of both of my parents going to my school, because Blue doesn't, I guess the kids at Blue's school is not necessarily making them feel welcome, and he kind of lets it slip that, he has double the legacy of Darla and Chase going there, and Darla picks up on that. So, again, Blue's just not a good liar, even though he didn't mean to kind of let it slip. He didn't even think about it. He was just talking to his mom. But, at this point, I don't think Darla and Ralph Angel will ever see eye to eye on this. And they both have valid arguments on, why did it tell Blue, why not to tell Blue. At some point, Blue will learn the whole truth. And it's better that, that it come from, Ralph Angel and Darla. He can read the book. At this point, he's old enough to read the book. And he would understand the subject matter more or less. It would just maybe be more context things, but 11 years old is too young, I think, for him to handle this kind of family trauma. Maybe when he's 21, I would say maybe not even 18. I'd say 21, he's past the teenage years. The one thing I will say about the Chase character, though, and I think I kind of touched on it in the previous reviews of those episodes when he was back in, or when he was in St. Joe's, is, Chase just seems like he was checking boxes. Chase himself stated that he did everything right in terms of marrying and having a kid, but Darla and Blue were somehow a disdain to him and, what he was trying to accomplish. Everything, he's done is a means to an end in becoming a politician. Not to say that being a husband and father couldn't make him better over time or at some point in the future, but the way Chase was acting in the Storm episode 7 and 8, I could literally see him being caught in a cheating scandal or with his pants down, so to speak, you know, literally or, metaphorically, him doing something stupid just by the way that he was acting towards Dollar when he thought she was, by herself with him, and just the way that he was talking about Darla and Blue when he didn't even know who Ralph Angel and Micah was in that episode as well. Just the way that he, was just kind of referring and speaking about Darla and never really, getting the information, never actually, kind of finding out if what she was saying actually had validity, just assuming, who she was based on, all those years ago. But either way, Ralph Angel does tend to do what he believes is right, even if Darla disagrees. And in this episode, Darla ends up taking off to Washington with True without telling Ralph Angel. But Ralph Angel ends up flying down there to Washington to basically let Darla know that, he loves her, and that she probably loves him more than he loves himself, and that, you know, coding secrets, lying doesn't do anything good. You know, it'll do more damage than good. He's learned that from watching, Ernest, his dad, and the fact that Charlie, mother was not his mother, and kind of how people just kind of just didn't say anything, but he knew that, they didn't have the same mother, even though they had the same father. So, they kind of seem to end it there. Dollar is upset, but at some point again, they're gonna have to tell Blue. It's inevitable. And then two, in this episode, it looks like towards the end, Blue ends up coming back to St. Joe's and going to school. Coming back home to live with Ralph Angel and Darla and True, and just going to school back in St. Joe's in that area, and leaving, Washington in that prestigious school. So he more or less wasn't happy there, just kind of how he felt, kind of like an outsider, and how people were acting. But that's kind of the overall ending with them as a family. And then so we go to Micah. And in this episode, Micah was a punk at the beginning of this episode, acting real childish, bratty, just not a good look. Cause, this is not adult behavior for someone who keeps saying that they're an adult and a grown man. Micah, didn't feel comfortable to go support Charlie 2 days before her election night because they had that disagreement last episode about him, dropping out of school in his junior year and wanting to go work in New York. But he feels comfortable using her money though. And Violet was right to confront Micah in this episode about not getting on the plane because everyone else has to stay there to go to the auction for Landry's, land. And Micah was the only one that could go and support Charlie, but he doesn't go. And he doesn't end up getting on the plane to California. Micah jumps up, starts raising his voice, and this is when Vi should have slammed a pie in his face for the disrespect, because he like gets up and like, this is what I'm talking about. People don't be people don't be respecting what I'm saying. I'm a grown man, and and Vi should have slammed a pie in his face, and and in this scene too, they're in Darren and Vi's restaurant, and Billy is watching. She's like, she got a laptop open. She's got a notebook writing down stuff. And you know how somebody's like, they try not to listen, but they like, she tried not to like eavesdrop, but he was getting kind of loud. And Billy's just like, let me keep on doing my work over here. Let me just get my pen and keep on writing in my notebook. Cause no, he didn't. And then so we end up finding out that Charlie, she loses the U.S. House District of California seat. She had 49.1%, and her opponent, John Green, had 51.8%. So basically, her opponent won by 5,065 votes, and Micah didn't end up going. Of course, it's on the news. Everyone's trying to call Charlie. She's not picking up. It's going straight to voicemail. And later on in this episode, Micah does end up apologizing to Aunt Vi, and she says, that's grown up behavior. And then we finally see Charlie, who we haven't seen all season. We've heard her voice, but she finally shows up in this episode, and it was nice to see her, but it was like really so short. I mean, less than like 5 minutes. Micah and Charlie, they do end up making up, and Charlie accepts Micah taking the position of program coordinator for the Law Enforcement Accountability Project, where again they match artists with projects that amplify police aggression in New York. Micah is in his junior year again, so at some point, he could. I would say, why not finish his degree? He could transfer to an online school to get those remaining credits, or transfer the stuff over to a school in New York and finish what he started. He's in his junior year. He's basically done. Whatever those remaining credits or classes would be. Yeah, go to New York, take the position, enjoy your benefits and your salary and all that stuff, be a grown man, but finish what you finish what you started. It's going to be so many credits or classes that he would have to take most likely. So, you know, so, and then, so he, that's basically the story of Charlie and Micah. Um, he does end up going to New York, and they kind of show him in the office, collaborating with the different artists in a meeting setting kind of a thing. But he starts his new position, and Charlie and Davis are shown back together having lunch or dinner, but they're happy. They're happy they're having dinner, and that's kind of the end of Micah, Charlie, Davis, or West, yeah. And so then we go to Aunt Vi. She's getting overwhelmed by the success of her pie in stores, and promotions through social media, TikTok, the gram. Aunt Vi Pies is a restaurant, brick and mortar business, and the people are coming now. They're coming in the door. She needs her family and friends to help her with the crowd at the diner and keep her balance when it all feels like more than she can handle. And at this point, it seems like in the episode they show you, like, it seems like it's caught on now that not just is Aunt Vi Pies in stores, but again, it's an actual place that people can go. So people are ordering the food on the menu plus the pies. They're like, we're out of this, we're out of that. If they want this, ask them if they want this substitution kind of a thing. But Aunt Vi's business is thriving and it's growing. So I mean, I think that's great. She's been doing it for a long time, and she's finally now at a place, where her business is thriving and it's growing. And then Violet in Hollywood, joy over being able to foster Polly, who was a really sweet scene, um, as the girl kind of meeting them and getting her own room, just as much as it was to kind of see their joy over being told that they're going to get a foster child. And Polly was raised by her grandmother until age 9, and then her grandmother died. And then Polly had been to 3 foster care homes in 12 months because people prefer little babies and not older kids. But, Polly is borderline now. And it was she's a borderline now. They didn't have a scene where she met like the other borderlines, but Hollywood and Aunt Vi found out when they were in the diner from the same lady who kind of submitted their application to be official foster parents. She just came and let them know, I have a child for you. But other than that, the other borderlines know about Polly, but they didn't have a scene where she met them. She's basically just with Hollywood and Aunt Vi right now, but eventually she'll probably meet the rest of the borderlines. But either way, I think it was a great kind of caveat to Aunt Vi and Hollywood's relationship too, because from how it started in season 1 to the full come around circle of them, now being foster parents, and her, still being able to. She's always been a nurturer, but for her to quote unquote, be, Mama Vi, or, I don't know what Polly may call her mom, or Mom Vi or whatever, but Polly can cook too because she learned from her grandma. So they're all cooking together, and they just look like a happy little family, and it's great. They get to be a family too. Just because you're older or younger, whatever the reasons are, you can't have kids. You can foster kids, you can adopt, and so they get to still have that family without it necessarily being biological, because love is love. So I think that was a great ending to Hollywood and Aunt Vi's overall relationship. So then we go to now. We're going into the auction. The Landry Land auction begins at $250,000, and all the other bidders, they lay their paddles down, basically leaving it between Ralph Angel and Sam Landry, along with Sam Landry's benefactor, who's raising the paddle, who has the funds. And they both end up going or bidding up to $750,000, which is the most that Ralph Angel has. So after $750,000, the Landrys, or Sam Landry and his money supplier or whatever, they go up to like 800,000. Then Remy steps in, from past seasons, season flashback character, nostalgia, whatever you want to call that. He steps in with the backing funds of the Texas Valley A&M University for all the way up until, was it $1 million, and then it's quiet. Then Jacob Bureau comes in, and he's also a previous season character. He comes in and he ends up bidding $1.1 million at the very last minute, and he wins. And he says, he's doing it for the family, basically. And at this point, Sam, he thinks he's won. And from the previous seasons, Sam ended up cutting off Jacob because he didn't respect Jacob and he didn't like him. He just overall thought that he was better than Jacob. And Jacob mom ended up going to prison as well because of Charlie in the past seasons. But either way, in this episode, Sam, he thinks he's won, and he basically asked Jacob, how did you get the $1.1 million? Because I cut you off. And Jacob's like, well, I have partners. And Sam was like, I would really love to meet these partners who supplied you with $1.1 million. And Jacob's like, I can do that. And so imagine Sam's surprise when it's the Borderlones and Parthena. And then Jacob lets Sam know, I didn't want the land. I wanted the satisfaction of besting you. My partners have integrity and vision for our hometown. They're the only ones who really care about St. Joe's. this process just happened to right the wrongs done by you and your father and your father, his father, and his father's father. Who knows how long it's been going on, as far as what the Landrys has been doing to farmers and people in that area, basically. And then Ralph Angel's like, too long, but it's over now. And Sam can take a bow. Shout out to Rihanna. And Jacob ends up letting Sam know that the Borderlones and Parthena, they got their land back, or they're getting their land back. Prosper will oversee the cane fields for Jacob's distillery liquor company for a percentage. And in the episode, basically Jacob, he owns this distillery now, and it's about 5 hours away, I guess, from St. Joe. He said he just wanted to get away from the Landrys and that kind of behavior. He just kind of feels that they're kind of poison or toxic, and he just basically just kind of stepped out. Again, after Sam cut him off, he just kind of went off and did his own thing. He's still in the area, but it's like 5 hours away. But anyway, he also said that Billy will provide legal advice. But then also, too, in this episode, Prosper lets people know that Billy is going back to Chicago and going to law school. So I don't know. I was kind of confused about that, but I already thought she was a lawyer. But either way, and then we also find out that, surprise, Sam finds out that the whole bidding scene was a setup from the beginning, from the Borderlones and Charlie from the start. They were basically waiting for Sam to bid whatever his max amount was, and then it was already planned for Jacob to come at the very end to bid his amount. So Ralph Angel was supposed to stop at $750,000. Remy was supposed to keep bidding higher as a distraction for Sam. And once Sam tapped out at the million, which is the most that I guess he had as a favor from whoever was supplying him the money, that's when Jacob could come in and then bid that 1.1, because at that point Sam had no more money to bid, and then that was kind of the plan. So they end up besting basically Sam. But in the scene too, Ralph is like, based on this house and property that you're living in, it seems like you'll be fine. You don't have the land anymore, but you'll be okay. They took his land, but he probably, he'll still have money. He'll still have friends in high places, whatever. Sam Landry will most likely be okay. And then we kind of they were doing, throughout this episode too, they started doing, they did like two or three flashback scenes with Ernest. One with him talking to Prosper about what he kind of hopes for his family to have in the end, and then another scene, flashback scene, when Prosper wife had died, and him being there at the funeral, trying to, being supportive to Prosper and Billy. And in the like the first flashback, Ernest just basically wanted his family to have and love each other, and not just the land itself. I thought it was very poetic. And again, the flashback scenes of Ernest they were very earnest. I thought they were very heartfelt, and poignant. It kind of showed his wisdom as a overall kind of patriarch, of sorts to the family. And I thought it was just nice to see him back, as a character. And having, in the kind of last few scenes of the episode, they end up having Ernest look in on everyone kind of from the afterlife. He looks in on Aunt Vi and Hollywood with Paulie. He looks in on Micah. He looks in on on Charlie and Davis. He looks in on Nova and Calvin. He kind of looks on each one of them. He kind of like in their current place as they're kind of just living and existing, And I just thought that kind of having Ernest look in on everyone from the afterlives as they live on existing was an enjoyable kind of series finale. And then they just have Ernest disappearing into his cane fields, and that's like the last scene, and then it kind of like spreads out to the overall view of the farm in like the fields, and then that's kind of how the episode ends. And so I thought this was a great episode. It was what, an hour and 8 minutes. It was a little bit over an hour. It wasn't like, I thought maybe it was going to be 2 hours, but they really kind of tied in a lot of things. I thought they tied up a lot of stuff very well. I also thought that the music throughout the episode was on point, with the story complementing the scenes very well throughout. I thought more so than usual. I just thought the music was really on point. It was like a real good contrast to what was going on in the scenes. They played really well off of each other. And overall, I thought it was a great season. A bit of a slow burn um, all season personally, but they have had more dramatic seasons previously. It picked up with Chase being introduced, and of course, finally the end of Sam Landry, hopefully messing with the Borderlands lives. So this season was more story focused on their lives, the family, than just drama or unnecessary drama that didn't need to be, which I can respect and appreciate. Real stories and struggles of everyday people, farmers especially, which is one of the main focus of this show, especially those African American, but anybody can relate because the struggles are anybody's struggle. These are everyday struggles. These are specifically related to farmers in an extent, but there's a decent amount of the American population who are farmers, and these stories most likely they can relate to. But I also went back to watch Queen Sugar season one, episode one, just to kind of see how it all started again. I have seen all seasons as they've aired throughout the years, but wanted to compare the first and the last episode as kind of where the characters were. When Queen Sugar began, no one in the Bordelon family was content. Well, I take that back. Some were maybe happy to an extent. I don't know if they were content though. Charlie's life was, she had the scandal going on with Davis, um, and their marriage was basically beginning to fall apart. Nova was having an affair with Calvin, a married man, and this is also in that episode. Ralph Angel left Blue waiting on a park bench so he could go rob a convenience store. Violet and Hollywood, they weren't married. They weren't married, but they were kind of together, or having fun. I don't think they had necessarily decided that that it was necessarily going to be what it became. I think they did seem to have strong feelings for each other, but and I know this is based on the book. I never read the book, but I don't know. I don't know the adaptation versus how the characters were in the book versus how it was done on TV. But um, either way, it was Ernest's death that kind of pushed them all together. In in St. Joe, it brought Charlie and Micah to St. Joe, and kind of I don't say forced, but brought the family back together to kind of be in each other's lives, in a true sense, and helping them kind of forge relationships that were kind of severed or that weren't really weren't really that close anyway. And it allowed them to see, how far they were from the people they were meant to be, and how far they were from where they really wanted to be and needed to be to actually be happy. So when you fast forward to this last season, you know um the series finale episode, the Borderlones overall are much, they're in a much happier and content place. And I think that in that sense, the overall season, the series finale, it stuck to its landings, especially if you just were to watch the first episode again, just seeing where the show began with where the characters were, and then this last episode of where these characters end. Um, and so I think in that sense the show did a pretty great job on that. I do overall like the ending. I mean, the Landrys, even though you didn't really see the Landrys in the first episode, they have been a constant kind of adversary to the Borderlands, more or less. So it was good to kind of finally see that story end, where if they do have any more issues or complications in life and whatever, hopefully it won't be from the Borderlands. The farm, the land is back in the Borderlands name, and hopefully their cane business can thrive and produce harvest and all that, and everyone can kind of just move on and just exist, and hopefully have happy lives. And I really did like the title, for They Existed, and they're going to keep on existing. If you really love this show, then I think it ended it in a great way, where the outlook on life is better than when it first started in the very first episode of season 1, and that everyone's kind of leaving off on a good note, and they're just gonna keep on living and existing, kind of like in this Queen Sugar world, where you're not going to see the show anymore once a week for 13 weeks or whatever, but that the characters are in a better place, where you've seen them last. So I think in that sense that the writers and Ava Duvernay and the staff and the directors and all that, for all these years, all the female directors that they've had and all the writers that they've had, I think they've done a good job in that sense. And overall, again, I do like the episode. I do like the way that it ended. I think it was a good series finale, wrapping. I think it wrapped up everything. I didn't have any. There wasn't really anything I questioned. I did think about. Davis did end up having another daughter, but she wasn't like part of the Borderlones. But I just imagine that she is, she's just thriving too, I guess. Like, she's existing as well. She's existing and getting older. But she wasn't Charlie's daughter, even though she would be in Charlie's life because Charlie and Davis are back together. But I just think, I'm like, didn't he have a daughter, a secret daughter or whatever? So, or another woman that he got pregnant. And Micah did end up starting to get to know his sister, but he didn't really talk about it with Charlie. But other than that, that was the only thing that I thought about. But that hasn't been mentioned since that season where we found out that Davis had another child or daughter or whatever. So it kind of really doesn't matter. But that was the only thing that I thought about. But basically, every other storyline, all the characters, they did wrap up. Even though we didn't see Sandy in this episode, um, assumingly, she's, her and Prosper, they're happily married, and Prosper has his new job now, overseeing Jacob's canes fields for his distillery. So, he's working. He'll probably still help out Ralph Angel on the Borderline farm too when he has the time. So I mean, either way, everybody's going to be thriving. The family is happy. They're better off than when they were in season one. Other than that, I don't have any more to say. If you like this review, hit the like button. If you have any comments, comment below. What did you think about the series finale? I've done all the episodes. I've reviewed all the episodes um, of this season. This is the last one. Thank you for all the ones. Thank you for all the people, subscribers, or other individuals who've been following these reviews. Um, and comment if you have any comments below any of my or any of these reviews. Go back, you can look at the other 12 reviews on those episodes. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. There's more to come. I'm probably going to do either Riches or Kindred or both as far as the next series, most likely. So these are going to be Kindred, which is coming on Hulu, and then there's Riches, which is coming on Amazon. New shows. So I will either probably be doing one or both of the shows. We'll see. I'm gonna, check out the first episodes and see which one, you know, is working. But either way, it could be one, it could be both. They ain't out yet, so I don't know. But we will see. But either way, hit the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber. If you are a subscriber, thank you for following along on this Queen Sugar final season journey. Other than that, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.